No, I'm good. Yeah, how's it been? How's the last few months been? I think I last saw you. Well, I interviewed you for the Kelly Gang, and I think that was
Yeah.
that this year? I
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
yeah,
But that's the thing. It feels like another time ago.
it's
Like
mad,
it's
isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Well, then obviously there was lockdown, and then I just finished another job, just sort of that we did at the very end of July,
Hmm.
um, and finished that like a couple of weeks ago, and now just in Berlin working on something else at the minute.
Oh no, so you're speaking out from Berlin right now.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I miss Berlin. That was the last time I felt normal at the Berlin Film Festival this year.
Really.
Oh,
Well, I'm staying literally opposite the Sony Centre.
nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
next to the Cinemax. So like
yeah,
I'm right in the heart of it. I think there's all the bears everywhere.
yeah. That's cool. I saw Nuclear just before the week on Friday afternoon. I thought it was really, really good cinema. I thought it was a really
Fantastic.
affecting drama. I just wondered what it was that initially attracted you to getting involved in that project.
It was the script. It was Catherine and David's script. Like it just came through, the opportunity to do a take for it. And I just thought it was beautifully sparse. But also kind of really deep, because obviously, as the story goes, as it goes, but it reads so beautifully and so kind of poetically, but in a very kind of, as I say, sparse way. And then when you know the way that the story kind of unfolds and folds over again, it kind of makes you reevaluate all of that kind of sparseness, and you can fill it with all of the possibility of this sort of what this place and what this narrative actually means. So it was the whole double level to the piece that I loved most. And yeah, I thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really quite fascinating and quite unique dynamic, isn't it, to their relationship? I just wondered if it took you a while to understand, because an audience member, it took me a while to kind of understand that dynamic. I just wondered when you were reading it, if you had to kind of think about it for a few days to try and get your head around kind of the role they played in each other's lives.
Yeah, I think it came sort of after I'd kind of got through the script, once all the way through first, because I felt there's a sort of beautiful kind of like dynamism and reality to their relationship as it is, but without kind of giving too much away for people who haven't seen it. I kind of thought that, this place is this sort of in-between place in many senses, in a kind of more metaphorical sense as well. And I felt like he was kind of maybe an angel of that place, like not in a sort of typical kind of like, winged kind of way, but like as this person who was lost and stuck sort of in between these two places. And I don't necessarily know how much knowledge, even awareness of his own position he had, but I think he was there to facilitate her eventual understanding of where she was. And in a way, therefore, it then came about, okay, how much do I know? How much of the sort of bird's eye view do I have on this situation? And when I'm asking all these questions and provoking her and antagonizing her, is that obviously I'm doing it for me as the sort of playful character, but then also am I trying to get her to understand something that I know, or am I trying to get her to understand something that I don't even know, but I just happen to be facilitating her with that? And it was all of those nuances that I found kind of that were a joy to figure out.
I mean, so often, across your career, you've been the young lead in a movie. Was it quite a nice role reversal where you're on set here with Emilia, you were the kind of older, more experienced head? Did you quite enjoy that change of dynamic in some ways?
To be honest, it didn't really kind of, it didn't sort of feel that way. So I think his Emilia was so like brilliant and is so kind of like mature and strong and just like wonderful and just excellent at her job as well. Like it felt very mutual, like I didn't feel like a sort of older, I'm noticing it. The one time I sort of noticed my age now is that thing of having done a few projects when I was younger, but now like Wolf, Jessie, who produced Wolf, this film I've just finished, the producer's younger than I am. And, she's put together this entire production, and suddenly, you usually like the producer is, your boss, and there's like the eldest one and the, but it's so yeah, but with Emilia, I didn't really feel that. We just kind of, it was lovely because I think because of there's nothing around them to kind of balance they obviously has a bit more experience of the world, but if they were meeting in a pub, I think you'd feel the age all the more. But because they're meeting in this open place full of possibility, they kind of in a way feel quite equal.
I remember that I first felt my age when I realised that I would go to the football and I'd be like adoring and cheering on people that were like 7 or 8 years younger than me. That's when I
It's the
realised
same. I
it.
watched Match of the Day the other day. I haven't seen it in ages. I was like, I'm 5 years older than that player, and he's not even young anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I'm now 10 years older than the young ones. You know,
Yeah.
like,
Whereas Diego Costa, the old Chelsea player, I mean, I'm older than him, and he looked like a bloke. And I always thought, and I'm
yeah,
not. I don't. Anyway.
yeah. It's funny because I was with a friend last night, and we were talking about, you know, like working when we were younger, and it's also that thing of now being the age of all the people that you looked up to and being like, oh my god, they seem so much more adult than I feel.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I interviewed Thomas Brodie Sangster the other day. Of course, he
Mm.
came into the industry very young because he was in Love Actually when he was only, what, like 10 years old. And we were
Yeah.
having a really fascinating chat about how much you just learn being on film sets from such a young age. And was that the case for you? Do you think that you kind of go onto a film set now and do you feel so in tune with everything around you, all of the kind of roles people are playing and stuff? You must feel like it's very homely, a film set for you now, having been sort of grown up in many ways in that sort of environment.
Yeah. I think you start to kind of have like a kind of just an understanding of everyone's different roles, and I think you kind of learn as by osmosis, just kind of watching it happen around you and sort of partaking in it from a young age. But then also, I've been lucky. I've learned. I think I've sort of caught up to that learning a wee bit more in the last few roles because of being around the project from an earlier stage. And so you sort of understand, oh wow, okay, the production design is talking to the director of photography and also the costume department, and they're all uniting on the color scheme of the piece. Okay, right, okay, that's interesting. And then feeling a bit more confident as an actor to kind of have a hand in the way that your character looks, and therefore having a dialogue with the makeup team for longer beforehand as well. Like it's that I don't know. Yeah, I'm starting to kind of apply that unconscious learning a wee bit more, and because of that, you learn it all the more. If you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah. So I saw someone tweet the other day, Want to Feel Old 1917 was released this year. And I had to double check that was the case because it feels like a different life. I mean,
Yeah.
and I just wondered if that's the same for you, remembering the press for the movie, the BAFTAs, the Oscars. Does that all happen within the last year? Does that feel like a distant memory to you now? Because for me, that whole Oscars run feels like it was, yeah, like a whole different world. Well, I guess in some ways it was.
Yeah, no, it does. It really does. I think the beginning of the year feels so different. I think because especially that sort of the newness of that experience, kind of the promotion of the film to that level was also involved so much of currently what we're trying to reconfigure, you know, of just physical closeness, of travel, um, all of that. So yeah, no, it does feel like a completely. I can't believe that was this year.
Yeah, now obviously you've got this kind of sort of distance from that time. It must have been an incredible experience for you to have been involved in a film that did the awards kind of circuit in the way that did. I mean, was it almost quite surreal, the whole kind of experience of the 1917 kind of run in some ways?
Yeah, it was. It was unlike anything I've sort of done before, and in a way, it was kind of what was really lovely as an experience because of the nature of how we made it and the amount of rehearsal that had to go into it, and therefore because of the amount of rehearsal, how relatively quickly the film came out, given the length of the shoot. It was sort of a year and a half of just 1917. Like it was November from 2 years ago into the beginning, all of last year, filming, sort of rehearsing from January till April, then filming from April till July, then promoting it from October till Christmas, and then all the stuff at the beginning of this year. So it was kind of only 1917 for an entire year and 3 months, which was kind of made it a very particular window. But all the sort of promotional side of it was mad. You know, it's kind of different world.
Yeah. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's not the first film you've made that should have been up for loads of Oscars. I still think about Pride all the time. I had to do a top 10 of the last decade because obviously from 2010 to 2020, a lot of publications were asking the top 10s, and Pride was such an easy choice for that list. I love that film so much, and I remember when I saw it, it felt like a classic, almost like a Full Monty type British cinema classic. Do you look back quite fondly on that experience? Do you remember when you were working on that movie? Do you remember thinking, yeah, this is a good one? Because it has something quite special about it, that project. I think it might get a real revival in years to come.
Yeah, I think for me, it personally taught me a huge amount of life lessons, um, as well as kind of creatively. Like I think we had this 3 weeks rehearsal period, or was it? It was either 2 or 3 weeks rehearsal period where Matthew, the director, kind of was like, "Look, there's loads of you in this, and so we're kind of going to have to loosely block how we can fit 5 people in every shot, sort of thing." And so know your lines, know your stuff, and let's kind of get to it. And across that, we also had Mike Jackson, who was a member of LGSM, sort of give us context because, you know, like wonderfully, we're in a sort of much more open-minded world now. And so to kind of, just to kind of get the context of the dangers and the pressures of being gay, of like in the 80s, and the strength of character it takes to kind of have ownership over your sexuality and just yourself in all senses. Some of the things that Mike told us were so kind of profound and beautiful, but also just simply the message, which is so universal, of just any steps towards a change that you want to make is better than no steps, no matter how sort of big or impossible the kind of vision of it is. It's far better to just go out with a bucket and collect copper coins than not go out with a bucket and collect copper coins. And that sort of witnessing, planting a seed in something, and where that seed can then grow, being, you know, making the film of it and then seeing how it was received, was so inspiring and important. So yeah, I do look back on it as a very, very special time. And also it was such a lovely large group of friends and crew and actors, that there was also like this kind of whole bunch of us young ones as well, who were all kind of like just really young, like in all senses, like in life, in like kind of, you know, in acting and in everything, just kind of wanting to sort of like this hunger for life, coupled with this experience of all the kind of the big guns that we were working with. And it was just a really sort of beautiful learning experience in so many ways.
Yeah, because of course we've met a few times. I remember, I think we had a coffee in Hammersmith Broadway years ago to do an interview, and I've always been very fond of you and followed your work really closely. It's been so great to watch you go from kind of strength to strength, and obviously you're now such a sought after actor. I'm just wondering if you remember that kind of moment when you realised that you don't, when you choose, because I mean now, because I guess you can kind of pick your roles, which is such a great luxury and a great position for an actor to be in. Do you remember that moment when you went from not having to think about exposure being any part of your selection process? So now, so when, because I guess there's a point as a young actor where you think, I've got to get my face out there, I need to show what I can do. And now I guess in some ways you can just choose projects purely off the back of the fact that that excites me, that interests me. I just wondered if you remember that moment when you realized, hang on, I can kind of pick exactly what I want to do now, not have to worry about any outside stuff.
Well, I think to be perfectly honest, I've been really blessed with my agent Donna, who I've been with since I was 14, has always gone with the latter, you know, in terms of it's never been about the sort of gameplay of exposure, or at least any sense of that I've been completely blissfully ignorant of. And therefore it kind of given me a confidence in the way of doing things. Also, like, let's not, like, you know, you do a certain way of working to allow you to do a certain way of work. Just always work in the way that you want to work. Like, if it speaks to you, it speaks to you. If it's in a big glitzy production, fantastic, people might see it. If it's not, fantastic. I think it's that thing of like, worrying about perception can be really disorientating, because all you have is the experience of it. And also, there is no right or wrong sort of thing for, like, you know, some of the films which have kind of affected me most in both life and the way I want to work is like This Is England. And that's like, when they made that, I don't think anyone was considering like, this is going to launch such and such. They just made it with complete integrity as the way they wanted to make it. And look what it did. So I think it's kind of, I just been blessed where there was sort of, Donna never really made me think in sort of two different ways that you're working towards a thing. It was just keep working, and then if you're lucky enough, then that will come, sort of thing, if it comes.
Yeah, well, I think, to be fair, I think all your roles right from the start have reflected that approach anyway, because they've always been so interesting. But I was going to say, about that day when we did meet outside Hammersmith Station, I remember seeing you there. You kind of stood outside, I think it was like the Starbucks in Hammersmith Broadway. And just people going about their day and no one really kind of stopped you. But I guess now, over the past couple of years with a lot of big roles, standing outside Starbucks and House of Broadway could lead to the occasional, can I get a picture please, or an autograph, or people just saying hello. How have you found that kind of side of things? Because as you kind of rise through the industry, a kind of byproduct of that is fame in some ways, isn't it? Whether actors like it or not, your face is kind of out there. How have you kind of navigated your way around that kind of side and people, stopping on the street and saying hello and stuff?
Like, genuinely, it really doesn't happen very often. Like, it's sort of, I'm not just saying, like, it didn't really happen that often. And so if it does, it's usually a really lovely thing, because it's a novelty. And thus far, I've been lucky that everyone's been really nice about what they've said. Like, if it's about a production that's meant something to them, then those have been the people who have come up and said something. And it's funny. Probably Pride is one film that people have sort of said, Pride in 1917. So it's like, it's really, I don't know. I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky, and it hasn't been. I can very much still, everyone walks past if I'm outside Hammersmith Broadway.
I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about Wolf. You've mentioned obviously that you've shot it recently. I know it's about a boy who believes he's a wolf. Are you that boy?
Yes, yeah.
So it's all made, is it? You finished? You've wrapped?
It's all made. Yeah, we just finished a few weeks ago, and it was a really, really special kind of making of it. Like, the time was really lovely, and we had 1 week's rehearsal the first week before lockdown, and then obviously all of the lockdown happened, and so we kind of, in a way, it was great because we found a few things in this first week about the wolf and how to kind of embody the wolf and what wolf means to this man, and in general, like what wild means, or like an interpretation of it for us to kind of have that gestate over the lockdown was really useful. And there was a sort of bit of physical training that came with that. And it's a production that's written and directed by Natalie Bianchieri, and it's a wonderful, like, kind of team making it. And I don't know, like, it's difficult to talk about without kind of giving certain things away. But it's, what I love about it is seemingly it's pretty kind of extreme in some ways, but also it's really, it never falls heavy one side or the other. It's kind of about this constant wrestle of, because the character's wrestling with it, of kind of what is true to you, and what if that's not true to someone else, and who's right or wrong in that, and what do you, and what's what is truth, what is that, and everyone's truth is their own. So that it's difficult to speak about it too much, also without trying not to give anything away. But it was, I was really proud to be a part of it, because I think it was, visually as well, it's quite unique, I think.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
So
just my very final thing, just before I do go, just wondering what's next, and have you got any kind of projects lined up that because I know you're in Berlin at the moment, but have you got quite a busy kind of schedule looking over the cross year?
No, to be honest, I'm just in Berlin now, and I think the production, I've mentioned it the other day, but then I went to set and I found out the production wanted to kind of just keep it under wraps until next week, and then they're going to release. So I'll hold off saying the title now, but it's a lovely project here. And then that's me till Christmas, basically. And I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen next year. We'll sort of see where the world's at and what with everything's going on. So, but I feel very, very lucky to be working there now, and it feels good because with all of the press and everything, it was a kind of wee while from actually being on set. So it feels good to be back and doing it.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks so much, George. It's been a real pleasure. It's always a pleasure speaking to you.
And you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey!